Our next speaker is Micheal Vegh of Resource and Environmental Management. He's speaking on density analysis of culturally modified trees and implications for ecosystem-based management in the Great Bear Rainforest.
Yao, sukos nukos, ganisislak nukwa, heishlak nukwa. Hello, everybody. I'm thankful you're here. My name is Ganisislav, or Michael, and I'm Heltzig. And today, I would like to talk to you about directed studies I did with Ken Lertzman at the School of Resource and Environmental Management on data that was made possible by the Heltzig Integrated Resource Management Department, Cuck's Project Society, and Raincoast Conservation Foundation. And as you said, the title is Density Analysis of Culturally Modified Trees and Implications for Ecosystem-Based Management in the Great Bear Rainforest. And there are three terms in that title that I'd like to go over for clarity. Slide one. The first being culturally modified tree, which within this context are trees that have been evidently altered by traditional methods of First Nations in order to utilize and extract bark or wood. And ecosystem-based management is a management approach that seeks to sustain the function and maintain composition of ecosystems while still allowing extraction for human use. The Great Bear Rainforest Agreement is provincial legislation that provides the opportunity to apply ecosystem-based management in the Great Bear Rainforest. And one particular document related to the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement speaks to objectives for historical culturally modified trees in ecosystem-based management areas. And historical in this context, specific to the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement, is CMTs older than 80 years. And so the first priority is that First Nations have priority over CMT management. The second one is conservation of CMTs in general whenever possible, and protection from site-specific hazards and wind throw. However, in some cases, alteration or harvest is allowed where First Nations provide approval, road access or infrastructure is required, or the economic development of the EBM area is limited by CMT conservation. So when I read this part of the policy, I said, okay, you can have retention, you can have conservation, or you can have harvest of culturally modified trees based on the situation. And so I asked myself if CMT density can help inform this diverse range of management outcomes. And so I performed a density analysis of culturally modified trees from data that was gathered by the Heltzig Integrated Resource Management Department and took CMTs that were recorded during straight line paired transects, which were transects of a certain distance where you walk a straight line, and you go a certain distance, and you go back down the opposite way to give you two straight line paired transects. And so I took the viewing area of those transects and converted it into hectares, and then took the CMTs observed, divided by those hectares to get CMTs per hectare. And I did that calculation for all of the 8 transects that were completed, and I got a mean density of 3.16 CMTs per hectare and a standard deviation of 1.52, providing a range of 4.71 to 1.6 CMTs per hectare. And I saw a maximum value of 5.1 on 2 separate transects, and a minimum of 1.3 CMTs per sector on transect 8. And these transects are not representative of the way they were completed in the field, but rather just placed this way for visual convenience. And within this data set, there is a coefficient of variation of 0.48. And so what this data shows is a range of values that can provide a baseline for comparing CMT density in other watersheds that fall under ecosystem-based management areas in the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement. So in conclusion, within ecosystem-based management areas, culturally modified tree management is led by First Nations. And culturally modified trees are just one example of how First Nations peoples are an essential, integral component of local ecosystems. But within the ecosystem-based management areas pertaining to the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement, conservation, harvest, or retention is possible, and any of these possibilities are based on many different factors. And as such, CMT density has the potential to inform future decision-making processes of CMT management within EBM areas. Gaisaka, thank you.